No slides. I was told no slides. I think I'm the only one that listened to the AV guys. Anyway, this has been a great day. I've really learned a lot. The one fact I'm taking away is that from this morning's session is that email causes depression. Now I know. You know, all that money wasted on therapy. It was just the email this whole time. So I hope you all take away one or two things from the Rackspace journey and customer reference. And if I could just start by asking anybody, if they are a Rackspace customer, to raise your hand. Looks like we have quite a few. Now, could you leave your hand raised if you're happy? Okay, there's 4 new references right there. So we'll meet afterwards. But the truth is, recently, that's about as scientific as we were in terms of recruiting new customers to the program. It was just kind of a mess. Real quickly about Rackspace, we are the #1 managed cloud according to the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We have over 300,000 customers. We have 6,000 employees that we call Rackers. We host 68% of the F100 companies. We have 9 offices and data centers in 11 different countries. And we're also the home of Fanatical Support. And as a group of marketers, doesn't that sound great, Fanatical Support? I mean, what a tagline. It's one of the best taglines ever, and that's why we copyrighted it. But let me flash back to 2007. Things at Rackspace were incredible. I was running a few sales teams at the time, and we were blowing out our numbers. Everybody was happy. We'd already filed the paperwork to go public. I mean, there was a buzz every single day you went to the office. So I'm driving home. It's like 6 o'clock, and it's my boss. Hello. And he just tells me, drop everything you're doing and get back to the office now. So I'm thinking, wow, maybe I'm getting promoted. I headed back, and it was a very surreal scene. This is at 6:30 at night. The parking lot is packed. People are parking in the streets. People are kind of running and hustling in the office. And I grabbed this guy, and I asked him, what the hell is going on? So it turns out there was a guy in Dallas, Texas, driving a pickup truck. I know that's a big surprise, someone in Dallas driving a pickup, but this particular gentleman had a seizure, and his pickup went through a ditch and jumped the barrier and landed right into a power generator of our biggest data center. And I'm no engineer, but when a data center loses power, I think that's kind of a bad thing. We had 60,000 customers in that data center. And so when I get around the corner and see my part of the cube farm, it's like this 3-acre campus we're on, you know, it looked like a Chicago trading room floor. People were on the phone. There were hundreds upon hundreds of Rackers back there. But not only that, there were family members of Rackers there because they had to come back. I mean, there were single moms with their 2 kids under the desk, and she's on the phone calling customers, telling them exactly what's happening. The phones, of course, are ringing off the hook. And we were there, you know, until about 3 or 4 in the morning, explaining to customers until everything kind of leveled off. Now, out of the 50,000 customers that were affected, I mean, these people were down, and they were furious. Only about 10 of them actually left Rackspace. So that made, to me, Fanatical Support very real. Fanatical Support is a real thing. The irony of Fanatical Support is it makes it very hard to build a customer reference program. Because I always thought that building a customer reference program meant asking customers for a favor. And as a Racker, that just felt kind of dirty. You know, it wasn't in our DNA. We volunteered our best for customers every day, not the other way around. So that caused a lot of problems. And besides, we were Rackspace. We didn't need the voice of the customer. We knew that they loved us. We loved them. Customers were sending our support guys birthday cakes. You know, we were shooting funny videos and singing happy birthday to customers. Everything was great. But things started changing. No doubt you've heard of companies like Microsoft, Google, IBM. There's a little mom and pop bookseller called Amazon that were getting into the space, and they were creating these massive public clouds where people could just pull out a credit card and rent compute on demand. And it became very hard for our sales guys to talk to customers and prospects and explain why we were 80% more than the same solution if you were looking at it apples to apples as like an AWS. So we, of course, throughout our own marketing campaigns, I think we had like the open cloud, and then we had the performance cloud, and it all just felt very flat. And at the time, I was writing speeches and doing all the executive comms for our then CEO, Lanham Napier, and he said, hey, Carter, come on, we got to get on the road. And so we came out here to the Bay Area and started sitting down with customers and really asking them, what's the difference between us and them? And what we heard was incredible. They were telling us everything that we knew, but we didn't know how to say. And when we got back to the headquarters, he said, we got to start figuring out a way for customers to start telling this. So myself and our former chief blog editor started doing a series of customer-related blogs. So during this process, we would call a customer, interview them, and then we would ghostwrite the blog and then go through the editing process. And what I learned two things doing this. One, customers had an incredible amount of information. They're so valuable, and it was just validating everything that we stood for. Two, being a part of the creative process with the customer creates a bond and a trust. And as these blogs started catching on, which was great, the bad thing is that people started coming directly to me to get customer references, and that wasn't my job. And as a matter of fact, our now CEO, Taylor Rhodes, and the investor relations group came to me on a Tuesday. Carter, how's it going? Hey, it's great. We're having some bankers from Goldman and Merrill Lynch come into town, and we'd love to have 3 or 4 customers, stand up there and kind of talk about our value proposition. That's a great idea. That's what we're trying to do. When is this? Friday. And I think that if a CEO asks you for something, that's not really a suggestion. You just got to figure out a way to get it done. So I picked up the phone, and I called some of these customers that I had been blogging with, who I developed a pretty strong relationship with, and it's literally just calling them on the back phone saying, listen, Ted, I know it's Tuesday, you probably have nothing going on, can you fly to San Antonio and speak in front of a bunch of bankers from Wall Street? So we got it done, and it was very successful, and I don't know if there's a correlation here, but the next week our stock went up a point. We have 122 million outstanding shares, so I think that little activity boosted our market cap $122 million. I saw none of that. But the power is there. So that was such a success. The next thing that happened is I was approached to run the customer reference program. And I did not want the job. I was having a lot of fun, writing speeches, traveling with the CEO, and cranking out a blog here and there. I didn't want it. As a matter of fact, I demanded, I do not want this new job. So the first day on my new job as the customer reference lead, I kind of gathered around some of the folks that were involved in it, and I started asking some probing questions like, let's start with the list of customers. Who can show me the list of customers? And there was kind of crickets in the background. There was an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. Somebody had a whiteboard over here, but there was just no process. So, okay, deep breath. Tell me now, how do we recruit customers? What's the process? Coming from sales, I'm certain there was like a quota. Are we targeting a certain number or a certain workload? Again, there was kind of some crickets in the background. And at that point, I went out to my car and I wanted to drive away forever. But then I remembered that we had made some serious investments in the NPS system, so much so that Fred Reichelt, who we all heard this morning, sits on our board of directors. So we had a lot of information, so I went to the director of our NPS, sat him down, we had a cup of coffee, and I asked him, hey, just curious, how many promoters do we have? And if you remember, promoters are the ones that give you 9s and 10s. They're the ones that take the time to recommend your service to a friend or colleague. I mean, this is, in business, about as good as it gets. So how many do we have? He pulled up the thing and said, well, we have about 60,000. And at that point, I wish I had a big mouthful of coffee, because it would have been the best spit take of all time. And so then I asked him, okay, out of these 60,000 promoters, how many have we called on to be reference customers? And the number was 0. So, that in its own was a whole different situation. And I'm sure a lot of you watch Mad Men. Don Draper has a great quote. If you don't like the conversation, change what people are. If you don't like the conversation, change what you're saying. So I took a sample of these promoters, about 500, and we created a recruiting mechanism to reach out to them, not to ask them to be a reference customer, but to thank them for being promoters, and if we could in turn promote their business, whether it be a blog, a video, or having them come speak. And out of that sample, we got about 125 brand new reference customers, advocates if you will, a 28% close rate on promoters. So we had figured out a way to recruit, and we're expanding this globally now, on a bigger scale. But the question I'm sure a lot of you have in this room, and I've had, is what do you do once you get them into the family? You can't just sign them up and not do anything with them. And so back to my blogging days, I realized the connection that you make with the customers is going through the creative process and creating really cool assets or things for them to do. So I'm going to queue up it's not a slide, it's a short video that gives you an example of one of our advocates and how he talks about his company and promotes himself at the same time promoting Rackspace.
My name is Dane Atkinson. I'm the CEO of Summall, and we are happily in Soho, New York City. So we want to bring something into the marketplace that actually allowed the creators of their own data to get it back. So they can see their own information, make better choices in their lives off their own data, and not just have it disappear into the cloud. We've been around as a product for a little over 2 years, and as a business for 3 years. We start out with getting, I don't know, a couple customers a day, and now we're doing 1,000 businesses a day joining up and sticking to us. We have over 200,000 businesses actively using us, and we will have over 1 million, of course, the next year. We actually started just with e-commerce merchants. We started with like Shopify and Magento and those kind of partners. And then we quickly realized that this had much bigger ubiquity, so we continued to add broader and broader data streams. Amazon is good for some things, but not when you're at the sort of cutting edge of technology that we are. We found huge delays in our services. And actually, I think it was about a year ago that we hit almost a breaking point in the business. We need specialists. We don't need generic, we don't need commodity, that's everywhere, right? We need somebody who can solve our hard problems, and our problems are extremely difficult. We need people who can figure out how to deliver terabytes of information in milliseconds, right? We need someone who can take 100,000 customers to 10 million customers in the span of 8 months. We need people who are smart and able to figure out the next step, not the stuff that's existed for 20 years. Switching to Object Rocket and Rackspace was night and day in every angle. And from a technology standpoint, the move was fairly seamless, and to take that sort of hour onboarding time for our customers back down to seconds, which is where they want to be and where we need to be as a business.
So that's just a great example, and I think that's better than any advertisement that we could have come up with at the time. And that was just me flying out to New York with a camera guy and interviewing him at his office. And then we did the B-roll footage and everything. And I have someone on my team named John McKenna, we call him Johnny Story, and his primary job is to go out and just keep interviewing customers. And just over the last 7 months since we cranked this up, we have captured over 100 video testimonials very similar to that. Customers talking about intimate details about what they do and how they couldn't do those things with some of our competitors. So it's great. Over the last 7 months, we have had over 40 customers speak on stage at events that we call Solve. We had one in San Francisco, Chicago, New York. We're going global with the program this year. We'll be in Hong Kong. So we have global customers now coming up on stage because they love it. They get to send their blogs to their friends or these videos they put on their websites, and they're actually generating traffic to their own, getting leads. Lastly, we have had, in the last 6 months, over 12 customers come to our headquarters and speak to rackers. If you're a second or third shift racker, you kind of get, I don't know if you're cynical or not, but I can't imagine being up at 4 in the morning and being very happy about what you're doing, especially when the phone rings. But when a customer comes, a CEO, and says, hey, the guy that's here at 3 in the morning to answer the phone for my guys is why we're in business with you. It's motivating, and it inspires our workforce. So in closing, my suggestion, and we still have a long way to go, and we're not as sophisticated as a lot of people here, and we're trying to learn more, but in the meantime, we're just trying to create meaningful content and give customers really cool things to do that they want to be a part of. So I'm giving you guys a minute back.